Okay, so I did it. I watched Fox News for an entire day, and while a lot of it was not very surprising, I did actually learn quite a bit, mostly about the audience. So if you watch my other two videos on CNN and MS Now, you know that I'm trying to be as open-minded and objective as I can be as I'm going through all these cable news channels, and I know it's basically impossible to be objective, and I'm not going to pretend to be objective here, but I did try. I just want that to be known. So like I did with the other two videos, I'm going to go through each show in detail. I didn't mention it in the other videos, but I'm not looking at weekend programming because nobody watches that anyway. So I'm going to explain essentially what each show does and try and give a sense of what each show is like. And at the end, I'm going to give two main takeaways, epiphanies, if you will, because I had two epiphanies while I was doing this. And they kind of speak to why Fox is popular, because I think I figured out why Fox is popular. I understand why people watch it, I understand how it operates, and I also understand why what it does is not easily replicatable by the other networks, including the right-wing networks like Newsmax and OAN. Like, those channels also are struggling to find viewers, and you would think that Fox would be hemorrhaging viewers, which actually it's kind of taking a hit recently, but for the most part it's fine. It's the number one network in the country, so it's doing something right. So if you're a Fox News viewer, just know that I come in peace, but I am going to call it as I see it. And if you're not a Fox News viewer, you should definitely continue watching this video because you will learn a lot. I learned a lot from doing this. There are, of course, things that are probably not going to surprise you all that much. They didn't surprise me, but there's quite a bit that is surprising. So I know this video is a little long, and I didn't expect that it would be that long, and believe it or not, I actually cut out quite a bit and just tried to keep it to just the important stuff. But I just had a lot more to say with this one. And it makes sense because it's the number one network in the country. And like I said, 14 of the 15 top rated shows on cable news are all on Fox. So that's got to count for something. So it makes sense that I have a little bit more to say about this one. I really do think I understand now why Fox is so popular. And if you want to understand, keep watching this video. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Okay, so as a lot of people already probably know, Fox News was founded by Rupert Murdoch in the 90s. He put a Republican media consultant in charge of the news division, which was Roger Ailes. And he was there for probably a good 20 years or so until it was discovered that he was sexually abusing some of the people that work for him, one of whom was Megyn Kelly. There was a whole movie made about it that you should probably check out called Bombshell. It kind of goes into it. There's a lot of people that have come and gone. Bill O'Reilly, for instance. The channel's headquartered in Manhattan, and it operates in 86 different countries. So according to the latest Nielsen ratings, in the third quarter of 2025, it dropped 6%. It dropped 17% in the fourth quarter compared to the previous quarter. So it is starting to take a drop in ratings. And at the same time, MS Now, of all channels, actually increased by 10% in the last quarter. So there you go. And Fox News also has 6.7 million followers on TikTok, believe it or not. And they have 332 million likes on that platform, which means it's in third place behind CNN and MS Now, but that's still a lot. So that's the last thing I'll mention before I get into the actual review of the content on the channel. But one thing that I'm going to go ahead and mention is fact-checking and bias. I almost didn't even want to include this. I didn't include it in the last two because I really don't want it to be about that. I don't want it to be about bias because bias is subjective, although there are plenty of sites out there that do media checking, fact checking, and bias checking, and they do report cards. So for instance, one that I will use is mediabiasfactcheck.com, and I'll show you all three of them just so that you can make the comparison yourself. So for instance, their report card for CNN says, overall, we rate CNN moderately left-center biased based on editorial positions by TV hosts that consistently favor the left, while straight news reporting falls just left of center through bias by omission. We also rate them as mostly factual in reporting rather than high due to 2 failed fact checks in the last 5 years. So they rate it as left of center, mostly factual, and medium credibility. So their fact check for MS Now says, overall we rate MS Now left biased based on story selection that consistently favors the establishment left. We also rate them mixed for factual reporting due to news hosts and the website producing 3 pants on fire claims. So the bias is rated left, factual reporting is mixed, and the overall credibility rating is medium credibility. Of course, that brings us to Fox, which it says, overall we rate Fox News right bias based on editorial positions that align with the right and questionable due to the promotion of state propaganda, conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, the use of poor sources, and numerous false claims and failed fact checks. While state news reporting from beat reporters is generally fact-based and accurate, it is typically overshadowed by propagandistic opinions, which earns them a low factual rating. So overall, this has a bias rating of right, a factual reporting rating of low, and the overall credibility rating is low credibility. So I'm actually using this one on purpose because it does make a point to say that while straight news reporting from beat reporters is generally fact-based and accurate, like they mention that, and you'll see in my review. So again, if you were a Fox News viewer, you're probably gonna say that's just fake news. And we don't have to listen to anything that website has to say. But you could look at any fact-checking site that does report cards like this, and they all kind of come out the same. Another one that you see floating around is this one. There's a lot of different versions of this one that gets updated every couple of months or so. You can see on there that there's a bunch of different shows on different networks that are rated separately, and they also differentiate between the cable news channel itself versus the website, which is sometimes different because I guess whoever's running it is slightly different than who's running the actual cable news channels. So there's slight variation, and I suppose the main reason I felt the need to mention this is because Fox is such a political channel, like wall-to-wall coverage of politics. So I would just say, at the very least, put that at the back of your mind while you watch the rest of my review of all these shows, and hopefully it'll kind of start to click. So on that note, let's see how I did.
Well, okay, so I'm going to have a lot to say at the end of this. I'm going to go through the lineup like I've done with the last two. Let's start with Fox and Friends first. So this is with Todd Pirro and Carly Shimkus. It's like the hour that comes on before Fox and Friends, like the normal Fox and Friends. This one it's actually a lot like Ali Vitale's show, Early Start, I think it was. It's not terrible. I mean, it's got mostly news. It's got weather, sports, like all the other really early morning shows. So it is kind of like a soft news show, I would call it. It did have Laura Trump at the end for about 10 minutes railing about the Democrats. But other than that, I would say it's mostly news. And then Fox and Friends with Brian Kilmeade, Steve Doocy, and Ainsley Earhart and Lawrence Jones. Steve Doocy apparently, according to Wikipedia, is not on there anymore. So what do I think about this show? This is one that, like, I have very mixed feelings about it. Brian Kilmeade is pretty much a garbage human. He's the one that recently suggested, unironically, euthanizing homeless people, which I think makes you a garbage human. And I think I looked up more stuff about Brian Kilmeade, and that's not an isolated incident. He has had some really bad takes. And so I just would refuse to watch a show with somebody like that on it. Lawrence Jones is not bad, but he's kind of not really present. Like he's like there, sitting there, and most of the time he's just sitting there awkwardly, like just waiting for his turn to talk, but he's kind of sheepish, I feel. And so he's just kind of there. He's like window dressing most of the time. But I don't necessarily have a problem with him. In fact, I kind of agree with him on a lot of things. Like whenever he does weigh in, I tend to agree with him more than anything. Ainsley Earhart, though, other than the fact that she's engaged to Sean Hannity right now, I think she's great. I don't exactly agree with hardly anything that she says, but she's okay when she's talking about things. She's also the most prepared one of all of them. She like literally has her notes, and she's like, if any facts or actual information makes it onto the show, it's probably going to be from her. Like she seems to be the most like knowledgeable and prepared to do the show, at least from the one that I watched. So I don't necessarily have a problem with her, but I wouldn't have any reason to watch this show. Again, morning news, don't have any desire for. And then after that is America's Newsroom, and that's for 3 hours, I think, the Fox and Friends. And then there's 2 hours of America's Newsroom, which is pretending to be a news show. It's got Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino, who is not bad. So this one has probably the best graphics. The graphics, oh my God, on Fox are a nightmare. But this is the only one that actually kind of looked like MSNBC a little bit, like the opening graphics, like with the swoosh. Like, I don't know. I don't know why that's such a big deal for me, but like I notice it because I feel like it's a sign that you take yourself seriously as a news show. But other than that, like most of the news was in the second hour. The first hour was filled with a lot of like commentary and talking and like that is true for so much of Fox News. Is all they do is sit around and talk. It's like there's not a lot of information dumping going on. It's just people sitting around talking. And you know, this is the one, it's literally called America's Newsroom, but I felt like so much of it was just, you know, bringing in the analysts, which is fine if you're actually going to treat it like seriously, but a lot of it's just people from think tanks like, hey, there's this story going on and we're not going to report on it, but we just want to get this guy's opinion. So much of that. And they bring in a lot of the Fox Weekend hosts were on that one too. And then I have here Kayleigh McEnany trashing Mamdani for 12 minutes. That was unnecessary. But yeah, it's brands itself as a news show, but it doesn't really feel like a news show. It feels like one of those rolling, like at late afternoon MSNBC, you know, like the rolling commentary and analysis and opinion and a little bit of news sprinkled throughout. I can pass. Then after that is Faulkner Focus. This one didn't really leave much of an impression on me. Again, it's like soft news. So it's like she is an anchor and she is reporting news, but she's, again, mostly talking to people. And some of the people she talked to were knowledgeable, I guess, maybe qualified to talk about the things that she's talking about. But man, she's like some of the afternoon MSNBC hosts that are like, they're doing the same thing, but they're laying it on really thick. Like Nicole Wallace, you know, like who's I don't have a problem with, but like when you're reporting and you're giving news, like you can like just chill, just chill. Like if you want a commentary show, I'm sure you could ask them like, hey, can I just do a commentary show? They'll probably give you one. They seem to give everyone a commentary show on Fox. However, Harris Faulkner is accomplished. She has 6 Emmy Awards, but I didn't find anything of value on this show, so I would never watch it. But after this is Outnumbered. The whole idea, there's 3 women. Let me see here. Harris Faulkner is one of them. Emily Compagno, who wasn't on when I was watching it, but she oddly was on Sean Hannity's show on the same day, but she wasn't hosting her own show, apparently. I don't know why. But also Kayleigh McEnany. Those are the 3 that normally host it. But then there's 2 guests. One of them's a woman and one of them's a man. And the reason it's called Outnumbered is because there's always a man on there, but everybody else is a woman, which kind of seems like DEI to me, to be honest. Not really sure they thought that through, but I'm not really sure the point of it though. Like, because when they were talking, it's not like they were talking about men's and women's issues or, you know, so they weren't even talking social issues, which is like the bread and butter of conservative media these days. It was mostly politics and a little bit of world news, and they're just talking about the news, and they just happen to be 4 women and 1 man, and I just don't understand why. Like, I don't, like, it just seems like a weird idea for Fox. But again, I didn't really find any value in this either. It's a talk show. It's a talk show where they all agree, strangely, and like they each have their own segments. It's kind of like the View or the Five, where they each introduce a different segment. But yeah, I'm just like, I'm so perplexed by this show. It wasn't that entertaining either. I wouldn't get any value out of it. But then after this is America Reports, which is probably the first decent show on Fox, one of the few. So this is John Roberts and Sandra Smith. John Roberts seems pretty dope, I'm not gonna lie. He's Canadian, which I didn't realize. He's in the Canadian Broadcast Hall of Fame, believe it or not. And he's got a bunch of accolades under his belt. And this actually felt like news. Like, there were reporters, they were reporting the actual news, there were packages, there were, I felt like there was actual information. First and one of the only times on Fox where I feel like they're actually doing the thing. Like, the thing that is the name of the network. News. It's like, hey, we can do that. We just got to go import an immigrant from Canada to do our news for us. I swear, I'm telling you, Fox has a lot of hidden secrets if you actually watch it. And this is one of them. Anyways, so the first hour is more of a news show. The second hour, there's a little bit more of that rolling opinion and commentary. Like I guess, it's 2 hours they got to fill. So, I can kind of forgive that a little bit. There was a little bit of business news, which I didn't expect because, like I said, there's Fox Business, so I didn't expect there to be a lot of business news. But they did talk about gas prices, and I think they also talked about the China deal and what it was doing to the market, because the market was rallying at the time of this. So yeah, not a lot of bad things to say about that show, believe it or not. If you were getting your news from this show, I would say you're probably getting the news. Like, you're probably getting the same, maybe not the same news, but like if there's something big, you're probably going to get it by watching that show. So, it is what it is. So then the next one was another surprise, the story with Martha MacCallum. I've kind of grown to respect Martha MacCallum a little bit. I feel like she's one of these people that are being held hostage by the more zany antics of the network, where she's just kind of like doing her thing. I saw an interview that she did with Zohran Mamdani about a week and a half ago, and it was great. Like, I felt like if you were going to interview Mamdani and ask him a bunch of hard-hitting questions, this is the way to do it. I would encourage people to go watch it, and you'll see what I mean. Where she's asking all the same hard questions you would expect a conservative Fox News host to ask a socialist, but she's doing it in a very respectful way. Like, she's not talking over him. She seems like she's genuinely eager to know his answers to things and how he's going to make New York better and stuff like that. But like, she's not laying up. She's not going easy on him, but she's also being very respectful. So I have a lot of respect for Martha MacCallum. However, most of her show is political. About 80% of her show is political, which is like, I would rather see her do more like world politics, or maybe, I don't know, just anything but politics, because like everything on Fox is political now. It's like 80% politics. She did a story on the aircraft carrier that's going down to Venezuela to cause trouble, and then the hurricane, and also Joe Rogan thinking about going to church randomly, which I'm kind of okay with her covering that, because it's like, this is her show, and that was like the last story of the show, and I can see like, okay, that's a it's not really newsworthy, but like I can forgive that. It's whatever. So I don't really mind this show. The next show, though, the Will Cain show. This show's pretty much garbage. Yeah, I don't, like, just based on first impressions, I don't know anything about the guy. Apparently he used to be on ESPN. He was like a conservative commentator on ESPN. I don't know why they would need liberal or conservative commentators. It's sports. But anyways, he that's where he came from. He also was on CNN for a while. But yeah, he's just kind of like an also-ran, like he's copying. Like, actually, I thought initially that he was copying Sean Hannity, but actually he's really copying Glenn Beck. He's even got the whole whiteboard or chalkboard thing. Like, he's got the wall, right? And it kind of looks like he's doing the same thing as Glenn Beck, but like all this guy's doing is just he's using a big board as a visual aid. Like, there's no reason for it. It just makes me feel like he's still doing the school teacher bit, but his argument's not very sophisticated at all, and I just feel like I'm in elementary school. And I'm just like, okay. And again, like I said with the Rachel Maddow stuff with commentary, you have to have an argument and you have to have sources and all that stuff in order for there to be value to a commentary show, which, by the way, this is like the first real commentary show of the day, because it's all commentary after this, basically, except for two. There's two shows after this that are news, and everything else is commentary, believe it or not. But he's kind of like the first piece of commentary, and it's just not interesting. I just feel, I get this impression of a child wearing grown-up clothes, Kind of like when Tucker Carlson first came on the scene, there was that video of Jon Stewart going on Crossfire and making fun of him because he wears a bow tie. Like, I just got a flashback to that while I was watching this. I'm just like, you're such a kid. Like, you look like a kid doing this. Like, you look like, you want to be Sean Hannity. And I'm like, maybe he does want to be Sean Hannity. But I don't know. There's not a lot. He has a monologue, but like I said, it wasn't a very sophisticated monologue. There's not a whole lot of sources to back up what he's saying. There's a few. I think he mentioned Forbes once. And he also has these little mini arguments. Like, there's little mini monologues throughout where he mentioned a couple other sources too. But like, this show's garbage. So then there's the big one, which is The Five. Now, The Five, I have mixed feelings about. Let's just say that. I'll tell you what I like about it first. I like the structure of it. You've got 5 people. It's called The Five. I would assume that there's always 5 people. So they've got one liberal, who's usually Jessica Tarlov, who's amazing. And then the rest of them are all usually conservatives, or maybe they'll have an independent on there once or twice. Usually it's Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters, who I don't like for reasons I'll get into, because they each have their own show. Dana Perino also has her own show, which I already talked about. She's fine. And then there's usually a 5th person there on the end that used to be Janine Pirro, but she went to the administration, so now it's just kind of like a rotating spot. But anyways, the structure of the show is they each introduce a segment, a news story, but unlike The View, where they just kind of, like, they introduce it and then they throw the discussion into the mix and anybody can talk, on the Five, they go one at a time, and they spend like a minute or two giving their spiel, and they usually have prepared remarks that they're usually referring to from like notes or from the teleprompter or whatever. So it's a lot more structured and formalized. And there's a benefit to that, I think, where you actually aren't shouting over people and you're actually giving them like a minute or two. Like, you already know we're going to talk about this, so like think of, put your thoughts together and then, give us your prepared remarks or whatever, which I think that's a format that I think is valuable. I think other shows could probably do that. However, I think what they do on Newsnight with Abby Phillips, way better. It's kind of like a mix. So like, the opposite side of that is like Piers Morgan, where you have 5 people on and they're literally just shouting over each other all the time. You can't even get a word in edgewise, because it's like Piers Morgan will say something and they'll throw it to the group, and then they'll all just start yelling at each other. And it's like he books people who are incendiary on purpose because it's good television. And that's why I don't watch that show. I just can't. I keep seeing these clips on YouTube, or people will send me clips, and I'm like, I'm not watching that. I get no value out of watching Piers Morgan's show for that reason. Which is not to say I get value out of watching 5, but at least it's got a better structure. And so you have Jessica Tarlov is doing the heaviest of lifts in her spot, because I can say now, having watched the entire network all day long, there are certain pieces of information that if it doesn't come out of Jessica Tarlov's mouth, Fox News viewers will not even know about it. It just will never be put in front of them. And so she has such an important job of like providing a little bit of balance to the network. She's like one of the only ones that is in that position, but she has a very difficult tightrope to walk, because like there are times where I'm watching her on that segment and I'm expecting her to like go no and then like offer rebuttal, but like she's very careful about when to rebut and what to rebut. So for example, they were talking about the Chicago mayor who was making some outlandish comment about zip tying babies, and you know, they all got their turn to talk before her. You know, they were saying this is ridiculous, this isn't true, there's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. She said, yeah, this isn't helpful. I think Chicago could do better. I think there are better Democrats that they could put up there. And then she pivoted to talking about what she actually wanted to talk about. And this is what that looked like.
Saying this stuff is not good for you guys.
No, it doesn't help. It certainly stresses me out when I see it in the rundown, so thank you, Brandon Johnson. Paul Dallas, I think would have been the better choice for Chicago. And we talked about San Francisco last week. And Dan Lurie is a Democrat and is doing a great job out there.
Possible.
Yeah, we're fantastic. But you can look at a couple of metrics to understand how immigration enforcement in this country is completely run awry. So ProPublica had this huge investigation into U.S. citizens that are being detained, 170 Americans that have been taken. 20 citizens were locked up for 24 hours without getting to call a loved one or their lawyer. And our very own Bill Malugin was reporting a few days ago on this inner turmoil within DHS that Tom Homan and Todd Lyons, the ICE acting director, basically want to prioritize the worst of the worst, the criminals, which is what they told us they were going to do. But Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski and Bovino and, of course, Stephen Miller want to just go after everybody. And that is part of the problem here. When you have people that are scared of ICE or saying masked men are getting out of cars and trying to round up people, those are real stories that are going on. And the American public is reacting to the reality on the ground that even Tom Homan and Todd Lyons recognize.
I think...
So I played that whole thing because I think it's important to see it's like a masterclass in what she's doing. She's basically saying, don't come at me because I mostly agree with you. I'm not crazy. I'm kind of more the common sense type. However, I do have this information that you all should know. And that's her job on that show, is to say, okay, but there's all this information that you guys are missing. And a lot of times, I think that she actually persuades them a little bit. Like, there are times where I see her rattle off a bunch of facts, and it's facts. It's facts. And they're just kind of like going, I don't know what to say to that. I didn't know about all that, you know, because like they seem to respect her a lot. So, you know, they're not like, the only time I saw them like really put her in her place, and that they do that sometimes, was after Charlie Kirk's assassination. I think she brought up Melissa Hortman, the senator in Minnesota that got killed, but that got assassinated, like she doesn't matter. Like, I think Greg Gutfeld was making some statement about the political violence is always on the left or whatever, and she said, well, but what about Melissa Hortman? Like, does she not matter? And it just sent him into the atmosphere, and you could tell, like, this isn't just a normal disagreement. This is like personal. Like, and she kind of backed off a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You can only push so much. Will I actually watch this show? Probably not. I mean, I'll watch it when she's on, if it's on, but like, I don't really have any reason to watch this show other than to know what they're saying. To know what is being said. So anyway, that's the 5. But then after that is Bret Baier. He's kind of like the big one that even if you don't watch Fox News, you've heard of Bret Baier. He's been there for a while. He has the role that used to be Shepard Smith before he retired, left the network suddenly. That was probably when Fox News jumped the shark, really, is when the guy that was there since the beginning just up and left. He just announced on his show one day, I'm not doing this anymore, bye. And everyone was like, what do we do? What do we do? And so like Bret Baier's kind of like, he picked up that primetime news slot, Slack or whatever. And I think he does okay. I don't really have anything against Bret Baier other than he was named in the Dominion lawsuit. There was a bunch of people named in that lawsuit that were basically, they were finding that a lot of Fox News hosts were knowingly lying to their audience about the election in 2020. And he came up. I get this impression that he's just like, guys, we're not really doing this, are we? We're not going to like go with this. Like, clearly Joe Biden won, right? Like we all understand that. And so like I don't give him a pass necessarily, but like, he's not as bad as some of the others. Like Sean Hannity was also named, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was probably the big one, so I'm kind of glad that he left. But, Bret Baier, he tries. I feel like all the biggest interviews on Fox are usually on his show. He clearly is he's like the face of Fox News in a way, in my opinion, which is not necessarily a bad thing because he's like not one of the worst ones. But the problem with his show is you will get news if you watch his show, but the producing of the show, you can see it in the stories that he covers, which sometimes he'll do like a half an hour on immigration. And it's not even necessarily because there's a big story about immigration in the news. It's just they'll do a half an hour on immigration, which a lot of these shows will do that. There are these pet issues that matter to Fox News viewers, and they will spend an exorbitant amount of time on them. And Bret Baier is no different. He's got handlers very obviously. And I think that you saw a lot of that when he interviewed Kamala Harris because, he asked tough questions, but you can tell that he's kind of a softie. So there were times where she was not answering the question or she was evading or she was whatever. And he was just letting her. He was just kind of I got this impression, not that he was being easy on her, but he wants to do the thing. He wants to actually interview people. But he was told, no, ask these questions specifically and nail her to the wall on them. But he doesn't really have the personality for that. And I think if you go back and watch that interview, you can kind of see it. He doesn't really have the personality to nail someone to the wall. He's just a reporter. And I think he's kind of a softie, which is not me totally selling people on Bret Baier. It's just kind of an observation that I would make. So that's Bret Baier. Then there's the Ingraham angle with Laura Ingraham. This show's pretty bad. So I remember listening to Laura Ingraham when I was in college. Not listening, but she would come on the radio, and I used to listen to everything back then because I wasn't really sure how I felt about the issues and stuff. So there was a conservative network, radio network down there, and Jerry Doyle was on it, Rush Limbaugh, a lot of them. And so I would never actually actively listen to her, but whenever she was on, I found her to be kind of okay, moderate sounding, but conservative. And now she just sounds like a crazy person, and she sounds real smug about it. Everything she thinks is just amazing. And the thing I mentioned about some of the other commentators on MSNBC and CNN, definitely true with her. She thinks that everything that, if you don't already agree with us, like, what is wrong with you? These people are demented. Like, how could you possibly? And I'm just like, it's like all the worst elements of what you would come to expect from a right-wing host in one place. The other thing is, like, in terms of the format, it's kind of lazy. Like, there's like I was saying about commentary shows having a monologue with an argument that is fully fleshed out. She didn't really do that in the segment I watched, and she never seems to do that. It seems like what she actually does is she finds these clips and then just talks about them, which basically means that she's a glorified YouTuber. Like, basically, if you watch a reaction video on YouTube where they're like, all right, guys, there's this crazy interview and we're gonna watch it. And then they press play and then they watch part of it and then they pause it and they're like, all right, I gotta say this. That's what she does on her show the whole time. And she has a couple interviews, but mostly it's just her going, guys, did you see this clip? Did you see this politician say this thing? Can you believe it? Let's play the clip. And then she just does her little smug routine. And I'm just like, yeah, I could watch all those clips. You guys have been playing them all day long. I don't need to like watch them again and then also listen to you. Like, there's no value. Okay, we're gonna get through this. So the next one is Jesse Waters. So I've actually never watched Jesse Waters' program until doing this. I always had the impression that he was just kind of an idiot. And he is, I think. Every time I see him on the 5, whenever he opens his mouth, nothing that comes out is smart at all. It's like whatever comes into his head. I think sometimes he thinks he's being funny, and he's not funny. But even when he tries to form an original thought, it's really not that well formed. Even some of his colleagues on the 5 will like rag on him and be like, come on, man. Like, he just doesn't seem that bright. But his show is different, because on his show, he doesn't need to be bright. He can have other people write his monologues for him. So he did have an 11-minute monologue, which was about, I think, if I could distill the argument, I would say Donald Trump is a stallion. He literally, the Chiron, I think, at one point literally said, Donald Trump the stallion. And I'm like, okay. And then he's just rolling through all of the successes that Trump has had. And it's honestly probably the first real commentary on the network in the sense that I've been talking about, where he like makes an argument, he has a monologue and he delivers the monologue. And so it made me immediately think that like someone else wrote this. Like, he's probably, and it's prime time. It's Jesse Waters prime time. So you got to imagine that like they probably are paying a lot of staff. I don't know how many people work for this show, but I imagine that like it's a lot of people working on this monologue, and then they just put it in front of him and then he reads it. And he's not bad reading it. I mean, he's a good puppet. He's a good deliverer of words that aren't his, but he's not a good deliverer of words that are his. So you can tell that by watching the show. It's like, it's highly produced. You know, he does have guests. The transitions. There was one thing that I noticed though. He does not do transitions verbally. He'll have these little mini monologues or mini arguments, and he'll have this like smug look at the end, like, ha, I nailed that one. Now we're going to this person. And he doesn't introduce the person. He just starts the interview. He did it twice. And I'm just like, you're not very good at this. Like, you're supposed to like tell us who this person is. Kind of funny to watch. Not in a good way. So yeah, this show's kind of trash, but I kind of feel like a lot of people at the network are like, all right, this is what we want to say. This is the moment. This is the prime time slot when everyone's watching. You know, he's got, I think, either the number 1 or number 2 show. It's either this or the 5 that in terms of ratings. Probably just because of the time slot. Like, not because he's good, but because it's like right there in prime time. And so like you could tell, like they put a lot, they put a lot of thought into this. He's like the vanguard for whatever it is they're saying for that day. So there's that. Moving on, though, there's Mr. Hannity. He is also a known commodity like Bret Baier. Once again, I've never really had that much respect for him. My first introduction to him was during the Ron Paul campaign when he was running for office, and when he was running, he did an interview with Sean Hannity in which Sean Hannity basically said, "Why do you beat your wife?" Like, it was those kind of questions. He was just like totally railing on him, not letting him answer any questions, being totally rude to him. But then when he was not running, when he like dropped out, he did another interview with Sean Hannity, and it was totally different. He was just like, I really admire you. I respect you so much. I mean, everything you've done in Congress, you really stand on your principles, and I really respect. And I'm like, shut up, Sean Hannity. That is so despicable that you couldn't have treated him that way when he was running. Like, that was my introduction to Sean Hannity, and I realized that he's kind of a political animal, and I can't really trust him. Like he changes based on, he's like a political weather vane almost. However, I kind of feel like his show has really gone downhill. He didn't really have a proper monologue, although I know he does proper monologues. On the night I watched it, he didn't really. And he's very low energy. So I feel like he's kind of got the same problem as Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper. Like, they just don't know when to call it quits. He's still very popular on the show, on the network. I'm not going to say he can't do this anymore, but like, he definitely seems like he's struggling. Like when you watch him read the monologue from the teleprompter, you can tell he's like really struggling to focus on the words and get them out in a way that he didn't used to. So I feel like he's maybe on his way out. I don't know. One of the funniest things that happened was this is how it transitioned from his show into Gutfeld.
All right, on Thursday, hosting a town hall at Point Pleasant, New Jersey, Jack Chitterell.
So a little bit of shade there, I think they're throwing at Sean Hannity, kind of like, get out of the way. It's Gutfeld time. I'm just like, I don't know if somebody did that on purpose, but it just kind of made me laugh. So Gutfeld is a talk show, late night talk show. I guess this is what passes for a late night talk show on Fox. This is kind of like their answer to like the Late Show or the Tonight Show. And it's a mixed bag. So let me explain. First of all, let me see my note here. Greg Gutfeld is not funny. Yes, okay. I wrote that correctly. Yeah, I don't think Greg Gutfeld's funny at all. I think he used to be when he was doing Red Eye, because I feel like when he was doing Red Eye back in the day, he used to have this show called Red Eye that was in the middle of the night, and there was some politics discussed, but it was mostly just them goofing off in the middle of the night kind of show, which is kind of fun to watch. And then when everything didn't feel so forced, I feel like he was a lot funnier. But now he doesn't even stand up for his monologue, which is kind of an annoying thing to me. Like, if you're going to do a late night comedy show, at least stand up. But the best thing about the show is, of course, Kat Timpf. Kat Timpf is like basically my spirit animal. She's amazing. She's probably the best thing about Fox News. I don't really understand why she's still there, but I do appreciate that whenever she's on, if there's anybody giving a different opinion on the show, it's probably her. She's kind of an independent and kind of a free spirit, and so like sometimes she will have a totally different opinion.
Let me get this straight. We go to a country, we capture their leader, we bomb it, and then we say, we run this country now, and that's not war. But when they send cocaine over here that people are willingly snorting, that is war?
I think that
doesn't make any sense.
There was millions of people celebrating freedom this weekend.
Just like we were greeted as liberators in Iraq. Listen, having concerns about this does not make you pro-Maduro any more than having concerns about the war in Ukraine made you a Putin puppet. It's the same playbook of
I don't think anybody's saying that, though.
For bringing up, all day I've been hearing it.
From where? Not from us.
All over the place.
Tom, have you been saying that?
And also, she's the only person that's legitimately funny on the entire network. Like they were talking about no kings, and she made a joke about, I think they're all out there because they just hate football. Because, you got football on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Thursday. It's too much, guys. Like, why is so much football? Like, I would go out there with a sign that says, this is better than football. And I'm like, and she just goes off on these little rants that are totally, like, she'll take whatever they're talking about and actually make it funny. And then after this is Fox News Night. This is a totally forgettable show. I'm not even going to spend a lot of time on it. It's hosted by Trace Gallagher. There's nothing really to talk about here. It's a rehash of all the day's news. In fact, it kind of feels like a clip show at times where they're just playing clips from all the other shows of the day. It feels like that kind of late night show that nobody's watching, but if it's on, you just be like, okay, whatever. And they do have guests, but none of the guests matter, in my opinion. So it's a totally forgettable show. So I'll go through the likes and dislikes, but first I want to just say something about the coverage on this network, because there are actual news reporters that work for this network. I actually made a list of the better ones. Jackie Heinrich, who's a White House correspondent, Donna Rotuno, Chad Pergam, Brian Linus, Max Gordon, who apparently he works on Fox Business. He actually gave a really good report about California film credits and how the film industry is re-upping its commitment to bring the film industry back. And I liked that report because I happen to know a lot about that issue, and I feel like they covered it pretty well and pretty fairly. Jillian Turner, who's a State Department correspondent, she's fantastic. She appeared like 3 or 4 times throughout the day, and I thought that she was pretty good. Like, all of her reports were pretty objective. And then the best report was Alexis McAdams. She actually was at this rally that Mamdani was doing, that AOC came to and Bernie Sanders came to. Kathy Hochul was there too. It was like the subject. It was the chatter throughout the day on Fox. But she was actually there, and she talked to a lot of people about, she asked him a bunch of questions about, do you think he's the future of the Democratic Party, blah, blah, blah. And she actually got a chance to ask Mamdani a question, and I thought it was a pretty good question, and I thought they got a pretty good answer too. Now, they didn't play his answer throughout the day because it's not good to them. It's not usable, but she did include it in her package, and she also interviewed Andrew Cuomo, and that was included in her package too. So, I just thought it was interesting because, you would forget that she's a Fox News reporter, the way she talked to people and the way she asked them, the way she included a variety of different answers. It wasn't just like a propaganda piece. So yeah, I would give a shout out to her. Also, there was one reporter, Alexandria something or other. I did not write her last name down. I apologize to her. But she gave a report that at the very end, it said, oh, and by the way, the Democrats are up 7% in the congressional generic. Back to you. And I'm just like, whoa, hold on a second. You just spent the whole time talking about how the Democrats are in a death spiral, and then at the very end you said, oh, and by the way, they're actually doing better, according to this poll that I'm only going to mention very briefly at the end. I was just like, okay. It's like, if you're going to lie to me, don't even put it on the screen. Like you put it on the screen and it's like, wait a minute. But the thing. You just showed the thing and it didn't say the thing you said. Anyways, I also took notice of all the Democrats that were on the channel. I actually made a list of them. There was the Biden press office, Yemisi Egbawoli. They brought her on to trash Biden, basically. Megan Hayes, former Biden messaging consultant. She wasn't necessarily brought on to bash Biden, but she was kind of brought on to sort of nod as they bash the Democrats, and she's just like, yeah, on my party, I just don't, yeah, I get it, yeah. Dan Kaninen, who is a former Harris Walls battleground director. He was on America Reports. There was like a we got a liberal and a conservative kind of one of those panels, which I don't actually have a problem with, because PBS NewsHour does the same thing. I don't find value in that type of segment, no matter who does it, but at least there was a balance there. And then Patrick Murphy, who's a Democrat senator or congressperson from Pennsylvania. There was actually 2 outside sources. One was USA Today, and the other one was Real Clear Politics, if I'm not mistaken, and they were both on Bret Baier's show. But as far as like outside correspondents or people from like other outlets that are providing coverage, they actually do all of it in-house, or they bring in like a think tank. There were a lot of think tanks, and almost all of them were right-wing. Heritage Foundation, Hudson Institute, National Review. There were a lot of former government experts, but they were mostly from like the sort of Republican-leaning ones, like the FBI and the CIA. There was one from Wharton, which apparently is the school that has the highest number of billionaires that came out of that school. So there's that. And there was one from George Washington University, which I guess is leans left. So there's one there. And that was about it. Not a lot of representation of the other side on this network at all. I just told you all of them for the entire day. And you got to figure, like, there's tons of people on this network that are coming and going. They show up again and again. There are good reporters on the network, but like I said, every show has politics on it. Every single show. There's not a single show that's just the world. I don't know, there's just an overemphasis of politics. Okay, so now that brings me to my likes and dislikes. Likes, I would say, the reporters that are on this network, I think they're fine. I think that, Fox has a lot of local affiliates, and all those local affiliates, in my opinion, are mostly indistinguishable from like the ABC affiliates and the NBC affiliates, like at the local level. And so there's a lot of like reporters that kind of rise up from that. And so Fox has access to a lot of decent reporters, and they do occasionally have reporting. Like I said, there's only like 2 shows that I would call good news, like hard news, and that would be America Reports and Bret Baier's special report. But everything else is just basically opinion and analysis and more opinion. There's like 7 or 8 commentary shows, which seems like a lot for a news network. If it's called Fox News Channel, it seems like most of it should be news, but that's where I feel like CNN is by far better, because like it is mostly news. Like there's only 2 shows at the end of the day. One of them's a talk show and one of them's a commentary show, and that's it. Everything else is news. I think the biggest problem, and this is, I'm now gonna get into my epiphanies here, because I have 2 epiphanies. Like what I wanted to do was figure out, why is Fox popular? Because it is the dominant cable news network right now, and it's not like there's not competition either. Like there are several, it's not just one conservative news network competing with Fox. There's several of them now. And yet Fox still has managed to remain dominant. And so those viewers are not going anywhere else but Fox. So I'm like, why is that? So I wanted to figure out like how much of the other news is being represented on here, how much of the other point of view is being represented. But that isn't really the thing that surprised me. The thing that really surprised me is how much it feels like church. Like I really think most Fox News viewers, they treat Fox News like church. They have their shows that they watch every day, and they never miss a day. And when they turn it on, that's them going to church. That's how they think about it. They're like, all right, we're watching our show today, and we're gonna spend some time with these people. Like that's how they think about it. So there's like a family vibe where like they're all part of a family, and you at home, you're part of our family too. And there's a certain power to that. But I also think that the fact that Christianity plays a role, a very heavy role on this network. Like, I also noticed that most of them, including Martha McCallum, and I want to say Harris Faulkner mentioned it, Kayleigh McEnany, like a bunch of them were mentioning Christianity a bunch of times. It's a big part of it. And so I think it's not just that it feels like church, they really feel like America is the family that they have created. There are people who are in our family, people who think like us, and then there's everyone out there, which really lends itself to in-group bias. It really lends itself to vilifying the other side, and they did that on every show. Every show was just bashing Democrats, not really delivering a whole lot of actual news. And so yes, it feels like propaganda, but I feel like that's what's driving it. It's the in-group, out-group bias created by a sense of community, fellowship, that church-like vibe of like, you're one of us. And if you're not one of us, then you're like a demon, basically. And there are some liberals who are allowed to come onto the network, but as I mentioned, like, most of them are just there to validate the viewpoint. If they actually gave a liberal a show on Fox, they would just stop watching. Or if any of the hosts started to, let's say, criticize Trump, like on a daily basis, they would stop watching that too, and they'd probably can that person. I'm not going to point fingers at Neil Cavuto, but you know, it is what it is. Like, that's just how the network is set up. It's set up to present, you know, one idea, and people tune in for that one idea because it's nice, it's fun, it's like community, it's like fellowship, you know? And the danger of that, of course, is they're presenting this like it's a news channel and they're fair and balanced. And I think their viewers believe that it's fair and balanced according to the worldview that they already have. But obviously you see the problem. Like, there are a whole bunch of things going on in the world that are just never gonna get mentioned. And I always like to, you know, hear as much information as I can, because that's how I make an informed decision. But I don't think you can make an informed decision about anything if all you do is watch Fox. You just can't do it because you're literally not being exposed to all the information. Most of it is just the same 3 or 4 stories, and they're all political stories, and they're all like, it's like they're driving a story. Fox's problem is that it is pushing a specific narrative, and that is definitely true. You don't have one message repeated on every single show and not notice that there's a narrative, you know, because like CNN and MSNBC, they did not really do that. Like, there were shows where like a big story of the day just didn't even get mentioned because the whole point of the show is that it's investigative reporting. It's not really a world news roundup, so it just doesn't even appear on that show. And so like, there's a lot more variety throughout the day. It's not like, okay, every show we're gonna spend 15 minutes bashing Mamdani, every single show. And it's like, okay. I see what you're doing, but I would really like to see more news. Like, I would really like to know more about the world that I live in. So anyways, so my 2 epiphanies are that it's like church, and that if you're wondering why, if you have a Fox News viewer as a friend or family member and you're wondering why they don't see what you see, it's because they literally don't see what you see. They literally are not being exposed to it. They're not seeing any of the other news that is appearing on the other networks that you're watching. And that's probably the biggest thing that you need to know, is that if you're wondering why they seem to be okay with this, that, or the other, it's probably because they literally are not seeing what you're seeing. And that's a shame, because like, I think that there's talent on Fox News. I think, you know, I feel like they are trapped by their own audience. Their audience has come to expect a certain thing from Fox, and if they deviate from that, they're gonna hemorrhage voters. So like, this presentation of this one singular narrative that is true across all shows on the network, I don't see a way out of that for Fox, because it is the reason why the viewers are not going to OAN or The Blaze or whatever. they probably also watch those networks to a degree, but they're not gonna like spend all day watching them. They're not gonna like stop watching Fox and start watching those other networks. It's just not gonna happen, at least as long as Fox continues to do what it's doing. It's also very bipolar too, so like they'll have all the shows do this too, where they'll show you something totally scary and disturbing, and oh my god, like they'll scare the crap out of you, like, can you believe this is happening? And then they'll immediately show you pictures of puppies right after that. Almost like a treat. Like, oh, you got through it, here you go. That's another thing that they do that's kind of creepy, in my opinion. But I can see the appeal. They scare you into thinking the world is going to hell, but then they tell you, but don't stop watching us because we agitate you and make you upset all the time, because we want to remind you that we're a family and we care about you, so we're going to reward you with videos of puppies or a monkey loose in a store, like this one. You know, I am not a child. You know, like, this is a news network. Like, what are they doing? You know, it's like, why is this what it takes to get people to stay watching? I don't know. I could just be salty about it, because I desire more in-depth, informative reporting and news. And so I want there to be more of it on Fox than there is. And there is some, you know, I've already gone through it, but yeah, it just is what it is. You know, this is me being as open-minded about it as I can. It just is what it is. So there you go. There's Fox News. I made it through, and take of that what you will.
Okay, so if you made it to the end of this video, congratulations. I salute you. I know that was a lot, but I think it was worth it. I think it was worth it going through this. One thing I want to mention before I go, though, is I recorded my review probably 2 months ago now, so a lot of the news that was used in there was kind of outdated. But since doing that review, I've watched a little bit more Fox News just to see if I maybe got something wrong or if there's something else that I might be gleaning. And I kind of feel like it's gotten worse since I did that review. So I think now more than ever, it is so crucial that when you're watching any cable news program, whether it's Fox or anybody else, that you pay very close attention to who they're bringing on and why. Like, what are they here to contribute? Is it an actual public official whose thoughts we want to hear about, or is it just some random person from a think tank who is sharing his opinion and that is just dominating the entire coverage? So I would say my advice to anybody, whether it's cable news or social media or print media, that whenever somebody's using a source or not using a source, that you pay attention to that. You know, if the whole segment is just somebody giving his opinion on what we're seeing, that's not really news. And I'm really bringing up that point because the whole reason why I'm doing this series of videos is because I feel like a lot of people I know on all sides are being misled by things they don't really understand, or they're being deprived of context and relevant details. There are lies by omission being told. And I think by the time I finish this series, I will find that maybe I was a bit too harsh on networks like CNN. So I'm sure there's people out there who feel like I'm being too harsh on Fox, and there's going to be other people who feel like I was not harsh enough. You know, if I do nothing else with these videos, I hope that I leave a very strong impression on all of you to really pay attention when you're watching these networks to see if you're actually getting news, if you're actually getting information, because on a lot of these shows, you're just not. Some of these shows are just garbage. They are just infotainment at best. They're not even infotainment, they're just entertainment, you know? And if that's what you're into, then that's fine, but just understand that if you want to be informed, you have to do your due diligence to be able to spot when you're being misled, whether intentionally or not. Like I said in my review, not all of this is bad. Not everything that appears on Fox is bad. Some of it is actual reporting, but I just really hope that I'm conveying what the difference is between what is good reporting and what is not reporting. You know, which shows are actually useful, which shows actually provide information and value. And so for my purposes, that is all kind of secondary to the idea that Fox is doing this church-like thing. And so it could be, of course, that what I'm after is not what the typical Fox News viewer is after. The typical Fox News viewer does not want information in the traditional sense. They watch these shows because they relate to the people on the TV. They relate to the people who's delivering the information. So it's not so much about the information itself, it's about who these people are and the relationship that they have with the viewer. Of course, it is important for any TV show or TV anchor or TV personality to have a relationship with their audience. That's how you get the ratings. So I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that that might be a much more powerful dynamic than the actual news part. So hopefully all that makes sense. I just, like I said, I call it as I see it. So if what you're after is news, then hopefully you got something out of this. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.